We've all seen the picture. A small band of courageous, fur-clad hunters charging a 10-ton woolly mammoth, armed with nothing but sharpened sticks. It's a powerful image of prehistoric survival, of human bravery against an immense beast. The fossil record proves our ancestors hunted them. We have the bones, and sometimes we even find the weapons. But there's always been a nagging question. How, exactly, did they pull it off? Taking down an animal that massive and well protected with a spear is an incredibly risky and difficult task. So, if the heroic head-on charge is mostly a myth, how did they really do it? The answer is stranger and far more intelligent than you might think. First, let's just appreciate the challenge. A full-grown male Colombian mammoth could stand over 13 feet tall at the shoulder and weigh up to 10 tons or more. That's the weight of a school bus. Their bodies were covered in a thick layer of hide and fat, a natural armor protecting their vital organs. Now, picture the hunter, a human, maybe 150 pounds, holding a spear. For decades, the debate wasn't if Clovis people, one of the earliest well-documented cultures in North America, hunted mammoths, but rather how central it was to their survival. The archaeological evidence, like finding stone points with mammoth bones, shows they definitely did it. The real question is how. Some experimental archaeology has shown that while thrown spears can penetrate skin, they might not have had the power to consistently land a fatal blow on their own. This has led to a fascinating discussion. Were our ancestors primarily daring hunters of megafauna, or were they more often opportunistic scavengers, using their sharp tools to butcher animals that were already dead or dying? It wasn't about a single weapon. It was about a playbook. It wasn't about overpowering the mammoth, but outthinking it. The truth is, hunting a mammoth likely wasn't a single act of bravery. It was probably a complex, multi-stage strategy that relied on brains, teamwork, and a deep understanding of the environment. First off, hunters wouldn't just charge the biggest, toughest mammoth they could find. That's a great way to get trampled. Instead, they'd target the vulnerable. Some archaeological sites suggest a pattern of focusing on solitary males. Much like modern elephants, male mammoths were more likely to roam alone or in small groups, making them easier to isolate from a large, defensive herd. Hunters also likely selected younger, older, or injured animals. The goal wasn't a fair fight. It was to stack the deck in their favor before the spears even came out. Perhaps the most important weapon in the hunter's arsenal was the landscape itself. Early humans were masters of their environment, and they used it to engineer the perfect ambush. Instead of confronting a mammoth on an open plain, they would try to drive it into a natural trap, like deep mud or a narrow ravine where the heavy animal would get hopelessly stuck. In 2019, an incredible discovery near Mexico City offered stunning proof of this. Archaeologists found what appear to be two man-made pits, dug around 15,000 years ago, filled with the bones of at least 14 mammoths. Researchers believe groups of hunters might have used torches and branches to frighten a mammoth, separating it from its herd and driving it into one of these deep traps. Once the animal was immobilized, it was vulnerable. It couldn't charge, it couldn't flee, and the hunters could approach with much less risk. This discovery provided clear evidence of a deliberate, highly organized hunting strategy, one where the trap did most of the work. This brings us back to the spear. While a simple thrown spear had its limits, human technology was far from simple. The hunters of this era were brilliant engineers, and their weapons were highly sophisticated. The most famous tool is the Clovis point, a razor-sharp, fluted stone point made from materials like flint and chert. These points, first found alongside mammoth bones, were designed to be attached to spear shafts and were expertly shaped for penetration. But the real game changer wasn't just the point. It was how you delivered it. Many archaeologists believe hunters used the atlatl, or spear thrower. An atlatl is basically a lever that extends the thrower's arm, dramatically increasing a spear's velocity and force. While some recent studies have questioned if the atlatl was common during the Clovis period, many specialists believe it was a likely part of their toolkit. But what if the spears weren't always meant to be thrown? A fascinating, though still speculative, hypothesis has recently emerged from researchers. What if hunters used a technique known as pike hunting? Instead of throwing the spear, a hunter would plant the butt of a long spear, or pike, into the ground, aiming the sharpened tip up at an angle. They would then provoke the mammoth into charging. The animal's own incredible weight and momentum would drive the spear deep into its own body. The force generated by a charging animal is immensely greater than what a human arm can produce. In this clever scenario, the spear becomes a fixed, braced weapon, and the mammoth essentially impales itself, turning its greatest strength, its size and power, into a fatal weakness. Even with a perfect trap, the kill itself was likely a brutal, drawn-out affair. The goal probably wasn't a single, instant kill shot to the heart or brain. That would be incredibly difficult and dangerous. Instead, the hunt was a battle of attrition. After trapping the animal, a coordinated group of hunters would likely move in, using their spears for both throwing and close-quarters thrusting. We can imagine them swarming the immobilized animal, targeting vulnerable areas like the abdomen to cause deep wounds. The idea would be to inflict multiple injuries, leading to massive blood loss and gradual weakening. It was a slow and incredibly dangerous process, requiring constant communication and teamwork. One wrong move could be fatal. They would likely harass the animal with projectiles and thrusts, backing off and waiting for it to weaken from shock and blood loss. This method, while gruesome, was far more reliable than banking on a single lucky shot. So why take such an enormous risk? Because the reward was equally enormous. A single mammoth was a treasure trove of resources, essential for survival in the harsh Ice Age environment. It provided thousands of pounds of meat that could feed a community for weeks or even months. But it was so much more than just food. The concept of zero waste was a simple necessity. The thick hide was used for clothing and shelter. The massive bones were used as structural supports for dwellings and were carved into tools and needles. The tusks were a source of ivory for crafting more complex tools and weapons. At the Tultepec site in Mexico, researchers found mammoth ribs that appeared to have been modified for use as tools, possibly for butchering the meat. A successful mammoth hunt meant the difference between life and death, providing not just sustenance, but the raw materials for an entire culture. So, could you actually hunt a mammoth with a spear? The answer is a resounding yes, but not in the way you see in the movies. The image of a lone hero taking down a giant with a single thrown spear is pure fantasy. The reality was far more complex and far more intelligent. It required a deep understanding of animal behavior, a strategic use of the landscape, and the invention of sophisticated tools. It demanded the coordination of a large, disciplined team that knew how to work together under immense pressure. And it may have involved the ingenious, counterintuitive tactic of letting the mammoth's own power become the instrument of its demise. The spear itself wasn't the ultimate weapon. It was just one component in a carefully laid trap of human ingenuity. The true weapon wasn't the sharpened stone, but the mind that guided it. What part of the mammoth hunting strategy surprised you the most? Was it the use of man-made traps? Or the clever idea of planted pikes? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy exploring the mysteries of ancient history, be sure to subscribe for more.